out of there. I'm like, little f***er broke your blender and I f***ing bolted. Never babysitted for them again. Didn't last long. I figured out real quick I didn't really like taking care of kids. Probably why I'm not gonna have my own. Or if I do, I'd probably just adopt like a 17-year-old at this point. That was my first job, and it wasn't terrible. It wasn't that bad. And then I was just a kind of a built-in babysitter for my mom at that age, me and my older sister, whenever she needed to go work. But you know, it is what it is. My second job, I also started at 13. I was a house cleaner, a maid, if you will. And I continued being a maid almost until I did YouTube. From 13 and onward, I always had 2 jobs and I was always cleaning houses or like residential properties. And I started doing that with my mom's friend. I was making like $8 an hour and I was like, but it was a premium job because I just got to put my headphones in, listen to my murder podcasts on my little Walkman, and I could just clean shit. I didn't really care. Like, I mean, I had chores at home. I was like doing that just for other people. I didn't really give a shit. And I have so many stories. There's just so many crazy people out there. Like, there was some ladies that would put like pennies or nickels under lamps or little things to make sure that you were lifting them up and cleaning them. And then naturally you'd move the penny or nickel. And then I got in trouble because this lady thought that I was stealing the nickel from under the lamp, but I just put it like back in a coin jar, and then I got fired from that job. She literally thought I stole like 3 nickels, and she's like, "You're out." I wish I did steal those fucking nickels. But fast forward a couple years, I was 15, 16, and I had made my own cleaning business at that point with a girlfriend. We were at this one house, a bachelor's house, and little maybe trigger warning, a lot of these stories end in some sort of sexual harassment of some sort, which is, you know, terrible, but I kind of laugh at it now. But anyway, we were at this bachelor's house. He was always kind of weird. He kind of kept to himself. Whatever, we're cleaning. And then he like passively just kind of says, he's just like, you know, you can make a lot more money if you did this topless. And I was like, sir, I'm 15 years old. And I was just like, no. And I walked out, and I definitely didn't think about it for like 2 seconds. No, I had morals. That really set the tone for men for me at a young age. Needless to say, he was fired as a client. Job number 3, a Mazda receptionist. At this point, I was still doing cleaning, but I had also taken up a job at 17 as a Mazda receptionist. And if you don't know what a Mazda is, it is a very reasonably affordable car. It was a car company, and I basically, it is what it is. I was a receptionist. I was in high school, but I would do that on the weekends. And for house cleaning, I would just do that like after school hours and that kind of thing. But on the weekends, I would go be a receptionist at Mazda. It was a super whatever job. I answered phone calls. I did not know, to this day, still didn't know how to transfer a call. Like, I had to get the salesman to come up and be like, you have a call on line 1. He's like, okay, just transfer it over. I'm like, I don't know how to do that. And they're like, oh, okay, whatever. I never learned how to do that. They somehow let me deal with like thousands of dollars because people would buy cars, right? Some people would like give checks, cash, whatever, and I was responsible. I was 17. I don't give a f- I didn't take anything, but I probably didn't count it right. I mean, it was pretty chill. The lot boys always hung around the desk, hit on me or whatever, and that was like whatever. But the creepy thing is like there was older salesmen like in their like 50s or 60s, and at this time, you know, I'm 17, and there was this one, it was this one always would come up and like rub my shoulders and like tell me to wear skirts to work, and I was like, I'm gonna go. And at the time, I was like so naive as a kid, but it's crazy, like the amount of times that like older men thought it was okay to say these kind of things. And like looking back, I'm like, wow, that really wasn't okay. And at the time, I'm just like playing it off like, oh, Steve, you're crazy. And then it's just like, oh God, no, that was concerning. But I left that job shortly after. But I did have a Mazda for years and years, and I actually just got rid of my Mazda because fuck you, Mazda. Now I got a Dodge Ram truck because I'm stepping up in the world. Job number 4 was a frozen berry factory line worker. All right, really took a step down. Still cleaning at this time, but my friend's dad owned the berry factory, and it's about as luxurious as you think it is. And when I say you work on the line, basically for 8 to 9 hours a day, I would sit on a stool, and there would be a conveyor belt with different kinds of berries that went down the conveyor belt, and I would just pick out sticks, leaves, slugs, dead frogs, other organisms that you probably don't want to know about that are probably in your berries in your fridge right now. Please rinse your fucking berries. It's bad. And the amount of shit that I missed, like I'd be like, oh shit, there's a dead raccoon, I missed it. But I was literally doing this all day. Like, I would look up and I would just see shit flying by like this. But the fun part of that job is that on my lunch breaks, I would go with my friend up to the attic and we would just throw knives at this cork wall. It was fun. I think I got paid like $10 an hour at that job. It was not worth it at all. But the knife throwing was fun. And I left that job as well because my boss, which was not my friend's dad at the time, took me on a private tour up to the top like scaffolding of the whatever of the factory, and he tried to make a pass at me, and he was also in his late 50s, and at the time I was very aware of what was happening. At this time I was like, oh, just getting into 18, and I was like, that never went back to that job. I lasted like, I don't know, like 3 months, like over the summer. So super fun. After that, it was a job, but I volunteered as a softball coach for a couple years, actually. So a lot of these jobs like intermingle with each other, but I was a softball coach for my little sister's team, which at the time she was in grade 11 and going into grade 12, and me and my older sister Jessica were coaches for my little sister's softball team, and it was so fun. It was so fun and awesome, and I used to play softball, and so did my older sister. We both got full ride scholarship opportunities, which we both ended up passing on because I went for soccer. But my little sister was so talented at softball, and she ended up going to Texas for softball in the later years for full ride university. But it was so fun. Like, we got to travel all together all the time to the States, all around Canada, to do like tournaments and that kind of thing. And even though it was for free, it was like really cool to have that opportunity to just like spend time with my family, because I hadn't spent time with them like that before. So that was a really cool job. The tanning salon. And yes, I know I am very pale, but at the time my older sister worked at the tanning salon, so I kind of had a shoe in at that job, and I just lost, I wasn't working at the berry factory anymore, kind of slowing down with the cleaning stuff, so I was like, I need another job. And at this time I was just getting into university as well, and I had a varsity scholarship for soccer, so I was really, really busy, so I needed like a really flexible job, and the tanning salon was it. And you're basically just like a salesman and receptionist. You just sit there and you just like put people in beds and just bake them, It was pretty easy, and I didn't really care about that job either. And also I almost got fired because I was too pale. Like, legit, like my boss got so mad at me because I wouldn't use the beds, because I burn really easily, even if I like start at a really low temperature and everything. So she said that I had to spray tan or I would lose my job, which like I understand to a certain capacity, but then I'm also like, bitch, like I would see the people that walked in there, okay? All of them look like leather bags. Like, I'm like, I don't want to look like that. But it wasn't a terrible job. I had fun. I worked there with one of my best friends at the time, and we had a good time. I've referenced the story about us playing soccer in the hallway at that job, and it was good. And at that job, we ended up opening a lash salon that was attached to it. My job was a lash technician, and this is a job I actually really, really enjoyed, because I get like really hyper fixated when I'm doing something I like, and that's exactly what a lash tech does. And if you don't know what a lash technician is, this is what it is. So basically, you're just putting lash extensions, a false lash extension on a lash, and it's very, very tedious, and it honestly takes like quite a bit of skill. You have to be like ambidextrous and really patient and have a really still hand, but I really enjoyed it. I was pretty good at it, but we were getting like so ripped off as technicians. The materials to put on were like maybe a couple bucks, and then I was making like, I don't know, like $15 off of like one set, and then the set would cost almost $200. The salon was profiting so much, and at that point I was like, why the am I doing this for these people? So I was like, doses, and I went out of there and I started a business out of my home. So I started doing lashes at home. It was the best thing I ever did, and it was awesome, and I gained a clientele, and it was really fun. I learned how to be an entrepreneur and a business owner and stuff, which I was still doing kind of, and at the same time as all this, I'm still a house cleaner. So I still had my own house cleaning business as well, and I really figured out that I really wanted to like work for myself. That's what I knew. I was like, I really want to work for myself for a living. And then we get to where I dropped out of university. I was in university for 2 years, but I was just really overwhelmed, and I didn't really know why I was in school at that time, and I was really loving working for myself. So I was like, you know what, I traveled for a couple months on my own dime. I took like a couple $1,000 and went to Asia for a couple months and was just like eating a meal a day and like trying to get by, but it was so fun. And then I came back and I was like, okay, I'm gonna get a trade. So I ended up going to hairdressing school. So I went to hairdressing school, I graduated, and I started working at the salon that I graduated from, and then also became a hair instructor. And I did enjoy instructing, but I had to drive 2 hours to get out to that job. Again, it was like working at a salon as a hairdresser. I'm sure some of you are hairdressers. It's rough, like money-wise and that kind of thing. So I was really struggling. Like the amount of gas I would like break even basically, because I would be spending so much money on gas and insurance. And then when I got out there, if like I only had 1 or 2 clients for the day or whatever, if it was slow, then it was just sucked. So I was like, you know what, I'm doing lash